Hi everyone, it's Maddie Brady. We're here to get real about mental health. Stay tuned for some great conversations with some very special guests. Hi everyone, welcome to the Get Real show. We are doing something a little bit different this week as I am turning 26. I decided to do a little bit more of a personal episode where I did ask my followers for some questions they had thus far on sobriety, eating disorders, really anything about myself, the show, anything like that, and just going to read through the questions and answer them. So the first one is, what is the hardest part of being sober? So for me, I would honestly say losing the expectation of thinking that it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows. That throughout sobriety, there have been so many ups and downs. And I think as well, honestly, forgiving yourself for mistakes in sobriety. I think a lot of times I use sobriety as an excuse almost to dive into further perfectionism. So sometimes I have this expectation that I can't mess up because I'm sober, because now being drunk or being wasted or anything like that is not an excuse, cannot be an excuse of mine for making a mistake. So personally for me, it's making mistakes while sober and forgiving myself for them and understanding that just because I'm sober that there are going to be really hard days and there are going to be times when I don't make the right decision, and there's going to be times where I hurt people in sobriety. There's going to be times where I mess up and I make a choice that does not serve me long term, myself and my mental health. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes and there's going to be bumps along the road, and that's okay. So being able to forgive myself for not only mistakes I've made, but also for having hard days, that it's okay to have a hard day, and that doesn't take away from everything I've done and all of the work that I've put into sobriety. So I would say that's one of the many hard parts of sobriety, but that is well worth it. And then we have, what are some sober activities? So at least in New York, there are endless activities here, but there's a lot of, no matter where you are in the country, there's just sober activities that you can do sober. But in New York, there's a lot of planned, intentional sober activities. So a lot of them, people that put these on have been on the show. So we have Elizabeth from Absence of Proof, where she does pop-up shops, and they're always slightly different, but hers is a very upscale cocktail lounge vibe to them. But she's done karaoke nights, all different sorts of events. We have Rachel Sober in Central Park does events. She does an array of events too. She does really neat ones where it's moon ceremonies and speeches she does, and walks, really everything. I've gone to her walks several times, and they're great because it's a place where you can connect with people and have super deep conversations while still getting out and enjoying yourself. And then we have Third Place Bar, which is Sam, who came on as well. She tried to create more of a divey feel, so not so much the upscale cocktail lounge, but more of your local dive bar, but sober. And I'm trying to think, honestly, we had so many people come on that do sober events. Who? Yes, so I wasn't even thinking, because this an entire organization. We have the Phoenix does every sober event imaginable. So They do sober CrossFit, sober rock climbing, sober runs to Rockaway Beach. They are an entire different caliber of just anything you can imagine sober, they do it. So the Phoenix is absolutely amazing, and that's an entire nonprofit organization founded in Colorado. They have events all over the country, so that is a great one. You can look up on their website where they are, all that good stuff. And then honestly, I mean, for me, like, aside from these put on sober events, I love to run, I love to swim, any form of exercising you can obviously do sober, and I think is a great replacement. I've been roller skating, rollerblading, jujitsu. Honestly, I did jujitsu just for a couple months, and it's something that I'm looking to get back into after I complete a couple races in the fall. And I think that is a great sport for anyone trying to get sober that is sober. That's something I dove right into right in the beginning of stages of sobriety, because you don't even have time to think. That's the best part of it, is that it requires so much thought process and physical activity. It just requires everything all at once. So you don't have time to think about what you did yesterday, what you're doing tomorrow, what's you not picking up your next drink. You don't even have time to think about that. So that is a great sport as well, as far as sports. And then we have, why did you start Get Real? So essentially I started Get Real so that one less person out there feels alone. So I think I said that wrong. So that I started Get Real so that one less person out there feels less alone, not alone. Because that was my main struggle for myself, that when I was going through it, that I felt alone. And I felt like nobody ever felt this way. I felt with my eating disorders, with my drinking, with other problems, that I was the only person that ever experienced that. And that is a lie that our brain tells itself to try to keep us isolated and have us lack connectivity in our life. And the more you isolate, the more depressed you are, the more you want to drink, the more you want to restrict, the more you want to binge and purge. Whatever it is isolation, purposeful isolation, where it's a form of punishment, does not serve you. There's good isolation where I think it's great to go and run by yourself, a hike. There's a lot of good things that you can do in isolation, but when you are purposely secluding yourself from others to keep an addiction alive, that is really where it starts to fester. And the goal of this is so that other people feel less alone and that they can relate. So I try to bring on so many incredible guests from all different backgrounds and all different stories, because I know that my story does not relate to every single person, nor does it have to, but I would like my guest stories to hit people in ways that my own personal story has not been able to reach people, and that they can find, the viewers can find similarities with themselves and whoever is coming on speaking, whether that be someone who's already in sobriety, that's in eating disorder recovery, where they can feel less alone in their thoughts in that process, or someone who is struggling, who is in the trenches right now, that listens and thinks, wow, I didn't even realize maybe I am an alcoholic. Maybe I do have an alcohol problem. Maybe I don't have a problem, but not drinking could actually benefit me because I get anxiety the next day. It could be anything from just that might be a healthier option for myself right now, to, wow, I have a really dangerous problem and I am looking for help, and this might be able to reach them. It is in no way, shape, or form to push this lifestyle on anybody who is not seeking out this lifestyle. That has never been my intention, and I will continue to try to bring different stories to light. and to your Spotify, to your YouTube, so that if you still have not heard anything that touches you or helps you in any way, that hopefully something in one of our future episodes might. And also, I think it really shows, I've had so many different types of people and episodes on. I'm all about appreciating other people's stories and appreciating other people. So even if I have someone on that my story is nothing like them, being able to appreciate what that person has done and what they have been through and where they are today, and just learning from others. Honestly, this helps my recovery just as much as I hope it helps other people, because I learn so much from all different people, and there's so much wisdom that people have brought to this couch, and so much transparency and honesty. And I really hope that it resonates with other people the way that it's resonated with me. And also, I'm going to add to that, I just even thought I'm also doing it because in the beginning, I thought that my sobriety would be a secret for the rest of my life, that I was never going to tell people about this unless you were one of my super close friends or family members. And I just felt like in my life that I had a lot of secrets that made me sick. Secrets make you sick. And I just felt like my sobriety was going to be another secret of mine, but in a different way. And I realized that a lot of my insecurity and a lot of my issues with myself was from myself keeping secrets. And I went the total other direction and said, here is everything laid out on the table, and you cannot hurt me at this point in my life with anything from my past or trying to weaponize anything that I've done or been through against me, because I'm putting it out there. I know that people are feel different ways about it, and some people think it's great and some people think it's absolutely horrible, but that's okay. And that's something I felt like for myself, because I struggled a lot with insecurity and the perception of myself, and I feel like I needed that for myself, to know that everything's out there for judgment, and some of that judgment is going to be negative, and that's okay, as long as my judgment of myself is okay and not negative, then I'm doing okay today. What is your favorite mocktail? I didn't really order these in a certain way, so we're going real deep to real light all over the board here. My favorite mocktail, so there's a place, there's canned ones, obviously. So in the beginning of my sobriety, I've said this a couple times, they didn't have the stuff they had today. It was for beer, they had O'Doul's, they had St. Patty's Girl, and one other third one, all equally as gross as the next. And then I remember they had FRE wine, also disgusting. I'm sorry for those brands, but just not my taste, not disgusting. And then they started to have all different things, and then they start to have non-alcoholic liquor, which boggled my mind at first. I remember one of my best friends sent me a picture of it being on the menu at a restaurant she was at, and me just thinking, like, how on earth is that even possible, which I still think today. But I really like it, because I'm glad that I got sober in a time period where there wasn't really any, because now I'm okay. I don't need that, but it's nice to have, because in the beginning I had a wedding in super early sobriety, and I felt like I needed to bring like FRE with me, or have this other stuff, and then I realized, like, I don't really like this stuff. Why don't I just have a Diet Coke? Or at one point I got on Red Bull, which was horrible. Would not recommend going down that route of the Red Bull and Bang Energy, because obviously being an alcoholic, I overused Red Bull and Bang Energy and would have like anywhere from 5 to 9 a night and would feel horrific in the morning, like extreme anxiety, heart palpitations. So definitely don't recommend that. Maybe 1 or 2 if you're able to do so, but I obviously wasn't. So then I was just doing Diet Cokes, and I love a good old Diet Coke. I know about aspartame, but what are you gonna do? And then now today I can have a mocktail and enjoy it, but if there's not one there, I'm not going to be stressed or need to bring it with me or anything of the sort. So long-winded answer, my favorite mocktail in New York, there's one it's called Overstory. It's a banana leaf mocktail, and it's one of my favorites, and I just love the place because it has an amazing view of the city, and I am all about just looking at a view. For me, especially in a city view, just I like to look around, and every little light I see or window I see, I just think about how much opportunity is in this city and how many different walks of life have lived here before me and will continue to live here after me, and what they have done. And the spectrum is so broad, it just simply amazes me, and I never get sick of it. So I love looking at that while drinking a mocktail, and this particular mocktail I just think is very, very tasty. And then I like a lot of the 0 proof liquors that are like the darker liquors, like the whiskeys or the bourbons I've had. And then at the Absence of Proof events, I love her 2 main bartenders make really, really good drinks. They have everything. They have the lychee ones. Oh, I love lychee mocktails. And then also the espresso martinis there are unbelievable. They are so good. So good. And then if you're in Philadelphia, I like at Jean George at the Four Seasons. I always get, so they don't have mocktails on the menu yet. Maybe that's something they'll do. But they have a lychee martini, and I always have the bartender make it for me virgin. And the bartender is so nice, and I've been going there for years. And he's always like, he just gets it. Like, he'll see me, and he just will like tell the other bartender move over because he's making it. And he is so nice, and it's a really good drink. And it just made me feel, because that was the beginning of my sobriety when I was in Philadelphia, and it made me feel so included on, it's obviously more of an upscale place, so being there normally was a special occasion or going out with work friends or something like that, and it made me feel included there, where mocktails aren't as prevalent in Philadelphia. They actually are coming. All my friends still in Philly have been sending me stuff all year. They are becoming more prevalent there, so I'll have to get the scoop on Philly mocktails next. Those are my favorite. And then I also like, for bottled ones, Phony Negroni. I love the Phony Negroni ones. I like 0 proof Negronis a lot, and they have a bottle. It's like a triangular bottle, and I got it at Boisson. I'm probably saying almost all, like, if it's the name of a place, I'm probably saying it wrong. But Boisson, good Phony Negronis. All right. I am 30 days sober. Does it get any easier with time? So it does get easier. It definitely gets easier. I honestly think the first 30 days are the hardest. And then for me, my personal experience, I will only speak on because everyone's is so drastically different. First 30 days were the hardest. First 60 days, honestly. I made myself go out because I knew, for me, I knew right away, like, if I'm doing this, I'm not going to be at home knitting or something. Like, I need to be out. And I want to continue to have fun. And I don't want to feel weird at weddings for the rest of my life or special occasions for the rest of my life. So I made myself go out right away. In the beginning, I literally wanted to crawl out of my skin. I was so uncomfortable 24/7. If I was saying I wasn't, I was. I was so extremely uncomfortable at all times. Like, wanted to literally poof into a ball of nothingness every time I went out. But I forced myself to, so that it would get easier, and it did. If you feel like you actually cannot handle it and are thinking about having a drink, I don't recommend that. For me, I never, like, when I was there, I wasn't like, oh, maybe I'll go sneak and get a beer. Oh, I want to drink again. It wasn't like that. It was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable. I can't breathe. But I wasn't trying to get a drink. So please do not put yourself in that scenario if you feel like that. But so I kept trying to force myself to go out to see if it would become easier, and it did. And I feel like, honestly, almost everything in life is just doing it at repetition for your brain to understand, like, this is your new pattern. Because I think it's 30 days maybe that something becomes a pattern. So once you start to do it, it does get easier, and you start to learn all those soft skills that you didn't know before. So a lot of alcoholism, and part of my story is that I felt super uncomfortable going out before. I always felt a little socially uncomfortable in those situations. So that's why I began to drink, so that then I was fun, then I was loose, then I could conversate with people better. I could connect with people better, all of that. I felt less anxious. I felt like I wasn't on edge anymore. So then obviously when you get sober, it's back, but tenfold, because you're a lot older and you still don't know how to do those things you didn't know how to do when you were 16. And it's super uncomfortable, because for me, I had a lot of insecurity. Now I'm the only one at a bar that's sober. Now I'm even more insecure. People are asking me why I'm not drinking. There's a whole tidal wave that comes with it. But for me, I felt like the only way to get to the other side was through. So I powered through that, and that was super difficult for me, but I'm really glad I did, because now it's not even a second thought. Like, it's not even slightly weird for me. When I meet new people, I feel like they'll ask if I still go to the bars or this or that, and it's not even a second thought for me. Of course I'm going to the bar. Of course and I'm not going all the time, but if there's a reason I have to be there, or a friend's birthday or whatever, I don't feel uncomfortable. But no, I'm not frequenting the bar every night. But if I do have to be there for a social event, that I'm okay there. And then also at the 1 year mark, it got really hard again, because it's a really long process, I think, of learning and facing all of these issues head on, one at a time. And at the 1 year mark, I felt like, okay, I've been sober for a year. I should feel extraordinary, and I don't. And that was really hard for me. I felt like things kept going wrong. And that's that classic victim mentality I fell into for a second there. And I realized, wait a second, am I putting myself in the most conducive situations for my needs, for my life right now? No. Am I trying to make any changes other than the fact that I just stopped drinking? So that was really big, that you can't just stop drinking and everything is going to fix itself. That's not going to happen. So I really had to realize, okay, if I'm going to certain parties and I feel super alone, if I'm with certain people and I feel alone, that those are not situations that are serving me, and I don't need to prove anything to myself or anyone by going to these parties or doing these same things, that it's okay to move on. And for me, it's always been an issue in my life, letting go. To this day, it's something I struggle with, is letting go of things. And when I got sober, I had to let go of a lot of things, a lot of people, places, and things. So that was super, super difficult for me. So, but it does get easier. I forgot what the question even was. It does get a lot easier. Those are the things you face in the beginning. And then once they're done, they're done. And those feelings might pop up here and there. And that's okay. But it's not going to be where it's an extremely strong feeling for a long period of time, at least in my experience and for myself. Maybe I have a fleeting negative thought about something that I already worked through, but it's not the same once you actually put the work in on those subjects. So it does get much, much, much easier, and you make more sober friends, you meet more sober people, and you find out who the people in your life already are there that are your support system, and everything just gets easier and better. And you find out who yourself is, which is by far the most important, is you actually realize who yourself is. Who am I? What do I like? And not what does everyone else like and I'm pretending to like, or what can I pretend to like or convince myself to like, really, that makes me more popular, that makes me more likable, that makes me more, honestly, that gets me more attention. So finding out what I like and finding yourself. So that happens with time. How do you know if you have a drinking problem? Or it might be, how did you know you have a drinking problem? I'll just answer both. So I think the telltale sign for me was, well, first people told me, and then I didn't believe them. And then you come to the realization that you do. But I had people in my life that loved me, that cared about me, that were telling me that my drinking was problematic. I was super young. I was in a party culture surrounded by a lot of other people partying. So I kept saying, no, I'm not. That's crazy. Everyone drinks like this. And I just thought that a lot of my behavior was normal. And first of all, it wasn't. I was normally the person that was the drunkest or getting myself into really negative situations. But also there were a lot of people around me that had that maybe drank too much as well. But that doesn't take away from your own actions, just because if everyone's jumping off a bridge, would you do it too, kind of thing. It doesn't take away from me having to have accountability for my own actions. And just because other people are taking action in negative behaviors, that doesn't make you doing it any less bad. And also a lot of times I was the one super over the top. So for me, I thought at first that because it was a huge coping mechanism for my eating disorder. So during the day, I just felt like all I thought about was my eating disorder. And then I would go out at night and then I could forget about it. I could not think about it. I could escape it. I could talk to people. I could let loose. So I felt like, oh, it's not actually a drinking problem. It might be a problem for a second, like a blip because of this eating disorder. But once I squish that, I'll be okay. I'm not an alcoholic. Couldn't be me. And then I stopped drinking for about 4 months. And it was really to appease other people, to try to make other people proud, to help others, because I knew I was hurting a lot of people, which hurts me. And then I went back to it and back to the races it went. Pretty quickly, it got really bad and really, really, really dark again. Really dark as well again. And I was also mixing in other drugs at that time. So I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but like upper. And that made it really spiral really quickly too. So that made it pretty clear that I did have a problem. But then even still, I finally decided that I needed help because I was at rock bottom. That is when my eating disorder switch. I've talked a lot about it. Ran through all the eating disorders, and at that point it was a lot of bulimia, and I was drinking a lot, doing the drugs, and I was really at rock bottom. I remember like being on the bathroom floor, just just empty, and knowing that I was going to somehow end up not making it. There was like my own blood on my finger from when you throw up so much you can throw up till you are throwing up your own blood. Super depressed, super hopeless. I just felt absolutely positively hopeless, and I knew that I had to get help. So got help, and then first I didn't even go anywhere. I just decided, okay, we're gonna try to change this. And then at Thanksgiving, made a whole scene, as always, like ended up on the beach, and then family members came to me and said, we think you should go somewhere. Went somewhere, ended up having to go somewhere else, and that was the first time I got help. And then I got out, thought, okay, now I'm on the road to recovery with my eating disorder. I'll just watch it with my drinking. I drank 2 more times after I got out. So I drank 1 time, absolutely made a huge scene. I don't really remember. That was pretty bad. And then the second time I went on a date, ended up then meeting up with my friend, it was the coldest day of the year in February. It was like on the streets of Sea Isle, and ended up in the hospital for my 5th time. And all my trips to the hospital were because of alcohol, but some were definitely because the mix of both. I wasn't eating at all in past trips, and then drank a ton. So that's when I knew. At that point, I didn't want to live anymore, but did not want to do anything to myself for the sake of my family and my friends and my loved ones. And my mom at the time, my grandmom, who I was very close to, was fighting cancer, and I just couldn't stomach the fact of doing anything to myself when she's out there fighting for her life every single day. So didn't do that. So I thought, gotta try this sobriety thing out. And I never thought I would like it, ever. Never thought I would like it. Kind of thought the rest of my life was doomed, but was like, I'll just do this for the people I love. But then I realized I need to do this for myself. I need to take back my life. I need to do this for myself. So laid in bed for several days, just watched some YouTube videos. That's why I do this too, because there wasn't that many back then. It was handful of famous people, honestly, and then one guy I knew had a couple. So I watched as many videos as possible, and then started it. So that's how I knew I had a drinking problem. But I finally had accepted it then, because as I said, I kept saying, oh, it's because of your eating. It's because you're eating. Once you get your eating under control, then you will be fine. And in that moment, I was like, no, I am an alcoholic. And that was actually a good moment, because then I knew I could get help for it. How do you know if you have a drinking problem? There's all different signs. I think the main sign, the number one main sign, and this happened to me too, is you want to drink a certain amount and you cannot. You drink way more. So one night, as soon as you're making plans, as soon as you are going to the bar, to the party, making plans on how to drink less, you really should not be drinking. because that's what I would do. Okay, tonight I'm having 3 drinks. I'll put a notch on my wrist. I'll do this. I'll move a quarter from pocket to pocket. There's all different things. If you're doing that, definitely have a problem, even if you're not that conscious, even if you're saying, okay, we'll get 1 drink tonight with the girls. We'll just do 1 drink. You end up wasted at 3 a.m. in some other part of town. Very bad sign. It's really at the end of the day just defined as not being able to control how much alcohol you drink. For some people, and certainly for me, you think that's not a real concept. That could also be a sign if you're like, wait, people actually can control that, because a lot of times, as I said too, you're in a community where everyone's drinking looks similar to you, and you purposely normally put yourself in scenarios where everyone's drinking like you are drinking. So if you're like, well, all my friends and I went out tonight and we all said we were going to have 2 glasses of wine, then we all ended up wasted in the bar, doesn't make it any better again. So those are telltale signs. And then also how you're feeling emotionally has a huge part of it. If you are super depressed after, if you're super anxious after, even if you're not an alcoholic, is it worth it? Is it worth it to pick up a drink again if it's causing you a lot of emotional turmoil? So I would say not being able to control how much alcohol you are drinking compared to how much you want it to drink, emotional turmoil, and really just assessing your relationship with alcohol and how and why you drink. So that's huge too. If you are drinking because you want to feel less anxious at the party, if you want to feel less sad about your day or a loss or a failure, very bad sign. I think my friend is struggling with an eating disorder. What should I say to them, if anything? Okay, this is a really good one because eating disorders are very, very tricky with this. So I know for myself, once I crossed a certain point, there was no way telling me anything. And also, you can also kind of fuel their fire by accident. When you say, like, you look really skinny, I'm concerned. I'll speak on my own personal experience, but I have heard that a lot of people have these shared experiences. So you're super skinny, I'm concerned, just sounds like you're super skinny. You're stoked when you have an eating disorder and hear that. The light bulbs go on. You are so happy that you just are, all you heard is you're so skinny. You don't care if they're concerned. You're so skinny. You're accomplishing exactly what you set out to do. So I would never, ever, ever say the word skinny or anything like that. I would just say, you seem a lot less happy lately. You seem to not be enjoying what you used to enjoy. Is everything okay? Are you doing okay? You seem a little bit off lately. These are all things you can say, I think, instead of, I would say to take as much focus as humanly possible off commenting on their body, because I don't think that it will benefit anyone by saying that, because their brain is sick at that time and they're not hearing it logically. The way that you intend it to communicate it is not how that person is hearing it. And for myself too, I'll just cut you out. Oh, you have a problem with me being so skinny? Well, me being so skinny is more important to me than any relationship, anything in my life, including my own life. So I will cut you out. And that's how I felt. So I ruined a lot of relationships that way, with people actually caring about me and actually being concerned. And also, people said I looked super skinny all the time, and I didn't really care. Looking back now, I realize when people were like, whoa, Maddie, you look super skinny, it wasn't meant in a good way. And I was like, yes, awesome. So those are some tricks, but I would just say that you're concerned about them. They look less happy, anything like that, like just not. Also, I'm not a professional with this, so please, if it's serious, talk to a real professional. But I would suggest using those approaches, or also not saying anything about what they're actually eating or not eating. Don't say, oh my gosh, you're eating a lot, or oh my gosh, you're eating so little. Don't talk about what they're consuming or not consuming, or what their body looks like at the time is what I would recommend. How did you become comfortable in your own skin and current body? So I think for me, honestly, it was fake it till you make it. I feel like I've been at a million sizes, a million weights, and I've never been as comfortable and happy as I am today, because I try exactly what I was kind of just saying about the last question. I try to not focus on my body. I try to not think, what am I going to look like in a bikini? What am I going to look like on vacation? I try to more so think, how can I stay happy and healthy? How can I do the run I want to do? How can I do the swim I want to do? How do I have fuel to do the 10K I want to do? So I try, and also I enjoy food today. I love, anyone that knows me knows I love desserts. So I enjoy food today, and that is something I didn't really do before. I obviously tried to avoid foods at all costs, and then for a while, even in my recovery, if I had that food, I had very negative thoughts attached to it and would essentially punish myself. And that's something that I've talked about before, is that there's so many steps for eating disorder recovery, and I felt like I went through every single step and then some. And there's crazy steps where you're like, how is this, like, you keep having this thought and you're like, how, I consciously know this thought is not logical, but I can't kick it. Like, okay, I had a cupcake and I didn't want to have a cupcake. Now you have to have 6 cupcakes. How would that thought make sense in any dimension of the world? But that's something I experienced a lot. And then also trying to like in my recovery, I would try to eat something I didn't want to eat, because I'm like, people know I had a eating disorder. I can't turn down that donut. If I don't want that donut today, I don't eat it. And doing all these things and just trusting myself and trusting my body. I intuitively eat today, so that means I listen to my body and fuel it and feed it accordingly. So I think also building your own confidence that I know what belongs in my body and what doesn't in this moment. I know I might need a little extra iron right now. I know I might need, you never really need sugar, but I know that having a little ice cream right now is totally fine. So then you actually trust yourself and you can be comfortable with yourself, because society takes advantage of if you don't have that innate internal instinct from day one, and they try to push diets on you. Do this diet, try this, try that. And then at the end of the day, you don't know your hunger cues. You don't know what makes you feel good and what makes you feel bad. You just are doing what other people are telling you to do. So I feel like finding what works for me. And then as far as the body, just being comfortable in being able to live the experiences I want to live, and taking away the need to look a certain way, that I'm going to look the way I'm meant to look, fueling myself properly, doing the exercises that I want to do, and feeling healthy. Doing those 3 things, I'm going to look how I'm meant to look, and that's it. And not constantly feeling the need to look a certain way and then put myself out there a certain way. I also don't feel the need. I felt like, honestly, in recovery, after I was super, super thin, then I felt like I still it was always about body. Like, then I had to show off my curvier body, and I had to show it off in pictures all the time, and I constantly had to wear outfits that accentuated that. And it still left me feeling horrible. It left me feeling super empty and super linked to my body and people only liking me for my body, but that's what I was putting out there. So I just feel a lot better today listening to myself, wearing what I think looks good, wearing what feels good, eating what feels good, and exercising the way that makes me feel happy and healthy. And that is how I am comfortable in my own skin. How do you heal relationships? How did you heal relationships? So I'm very fortunate that I was able to heal a lot of my relationships. Some I'm still working on, some you don't get the opportunity to. There's all different relationships on the spectrum. I'll focus on, at least with my parents, I felt like I had a really negative relationship with them for a while, and I held on to a lot of things from childhood, from the years of me abusing alcohol, the years of my eating disorders, from sports growing up. These are all things that I held on to. And then I think I said this in one of my past episodes too, taking the bird's eye view and trying to remove yourself from your ego and your lived experiences and look at it from an objective view and say, my parents were raised to the best of their parents' ability and the best of their parents' ability, and so on and so on, and that no human being is perfect. And there was a lot of trauma in my family tree, and there was a lot of alcoholism and addiction and really everything in my family tree as well, and that they did the best they could do. And I'm super grateful, honestly, for the lessons that they did instill in me. There's multiple lessons that I learned from them that I do not take for granted, and I'm beyond grateful that I had the life that I did. And there were some negative things that I was able to work through and realize that it has to stop with someone. So now I know that moving forward, I've healed myself to the best of my ability and will continue to, for when I hopefully have my own children, and then I can try better for them. And also, like, in the sake of my parents have both grown immensely and really, really, really grown throughout the past couple of years, and seeing their children go through certain things. And the world is entirely different today than it was back then. So there's a lot more education, a lot more people recovering out loud, a lot more people sharing their experiences. So that's as far as that. Certain friends I've reached back out to, I've taken the chance. Sometimes it's scary, but friends I haven't talked to in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, reached back out to and tried to remake a relationship with. Some I still haven't gotten the chance to, that I would like to still. And others I feel like you can just both be happy for each other and both live different lives, and that's okay too. And then those are some of the main ones. I mean, relationships I think are tricky even in sobriety. As I've said, I've hurt people in sobriety. That's challenging as well. I've tried to make amends where I can, and where I can't, I've tried to let go having to control their opinion of me, which is still something that's very, very difficult, because I want them to change their opinion of me. I want them to see who I am today. I want things to be different, but you cannot control everything, and that is just a life lesson. How do you feel about social media? So obviously there's good and bad parts of social media. Pretty sure I've covered this before. Growing up, it was definitely bad. I was at least on the bad pages. It was a lot of girls just getting famous for looking super hot in a bikini. That's where a lot of the Instagram models and all of that was at its high. People were super thin. Lot of, like, I just remember that pose where you're like on your back with your ribs popping out. So all of that, I think, A, for eating disorder is not great, but B, also, as I said, like, I've done those pictures. I've done the, oh, here's me in a bikini, and it is not fulfilling. It does not make you feel good long term. It makes you feel worse long term. In the second, it just gives you instant gratification. It gives you a bunch of likes. It gives you this wave of validation, and the only validation that matters is from yourself. And how are you going to feel validated from yourself when you're putting that out there for the wrong reasons? I'm not saying that it's every single person. People's relationships are different with themselves. There's bikini models that's what they do for a living, totally fine. But it's the intention behind everything at the end of the day. If I'm on vacation on an island or something, I have a picture in my bathing suit today, sure, but am I out there taking 40 trillion pictures, literally 40 trillion pictures of myself at every angle possible, and then spending hours going through each and every single one to post the best one, to try to get the most amount of likes, to try to validate what I am not giving myself? I think absolutely horrible. But that's just one small, minute part of social media that I don't experience anymore. So I think that it doesn't exist anymore, which is probably not true. So that's something you can fall into. And then I think for what I do today, that social media is absolutely amazing. I think that it is great for sharing stories. And as I said, like, my very first week of sobriety, I was trying to watch YouTube videos. So I think it's great to be able to find a 30-second TikTok, 30-second Instagram reel that catches your attention, end up on the profile of someone super positive that might really help you. And that's helped me today. I found almost every single guest from this show on Instagram, and some of them were absolutely incredible people that I got to meet, and then others are people that I'm still friends with today from reaching out on social media. So I think it's a great way to connect, especially when you're in a large city and you're new and you're trying to connect. I think it can be really good, and you can put some really positive messages out there. Then also there's a negative side. I covered that negative side, and then I also just thought of sometimes normalizing bad behavior, like a bunch of reels talking about binge drinking, super normalizing it, and then you're continuously telling yourself how normal it is when it's not. So there's both sides of the coin. What surprised you about getting sober? I think what surprised me was that I liked it, because how I said, I thought the rest of my life was doomed, and it has been the best gift in the entire world. And I said it on an episode I did earlier today. I'm all about things you cannot buy, you cannot cheat your way to, and that is sobriety. And I am so glad and grateful for it. I think almost everything positive that's happened in my life can be traced back to sobriety and me getting sober. And I think the amount I've grown, like, you think it's just, okay, I'm gonna stop drinking, but as a human being, the growth and the development that I've experienced, I did not know was possible at all. So that's what surprised me, is how incredible it is, and the incredible people in it. The people I've met in sobriety are just unreal, whether that be other sober people or not sober people that are just super supportive and amazing and make my world go round. And I just want people to realize how much I love their friendships and how much they help me by even if you're not sober, if you just support me and make my experience not feel super weird or super out of the ordinary. Every single person I hold in my heart so dearly. So, people and how amazing sobriety is. How did you get help? So I got help. I basically answered this question already. So I tried to get sober the one time. I went to one, actually, yes. So I tried to get sober and eating disorder free the one time, failed at both the first. Went to a recovery treatment. It was somewhere you just went during the daytime for the eating disorder, then you left. It didn't really help me. I didn't really do it correctly. I wasn't fully committed, so that had a huge part in it. And then also with the drinking help, I was not committed whatsoever, and I kept thinking, like, I'm just gonna do this for a little. My initial mindset was like, I'm just not gonna drink for 2 years and see how it goes. Obviously, I only made it 4 months, but I had no intention of like living a life of sobriety, zero. So then Thanksgiving came, my family member came to me and told me I should get help, which was the best thing in the entire world, because I listened, because I respected their opinion and loved them. So I listened, and here I am today. I went to Timberline Knolls in Chicago. First I went somewhere in Pennsylvania for a couple days, didn't take my insurance, had to go to Chicago. I loved going to Chicago because I felt like I just had to go away, and I felt like I just had to be somewhere, like not just, drive there from 8 to 5. I just had to be somewhere. And when I got there, it was the first time in my entire life that I was fully committed to recovery, because as I said about my low point, I was just hopeless. So when I got there, I was fully committed to recovery, and I actually felt hope when I got there. If you drug me there in the midst of it all, I would have fought tooth and nail, but I felt hope and I felt peace for the first time in years and years, because everything was taken out of my control. And at the end of the day, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's drugs, whether it's eating disorders, everything is linked back to control and myself trying to control everything else out there. So I knew I had zero control. I had no control on what I was eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I had no control on the sessions we were doing. I had no control over what time I was going to bed. I mean, obviously you couldn't stay awake, but bedtime was bedtime. There was no control on anything, and it was glorious. I remember actually, and you had no cell phones too, which was also amazing. And there was like dance and yoga and drawing and all this stuff, and just actually being able to be present and in it, because there was nowhere else for me to go or nothing else for me to do or check or worry about, was great. So I'm really thankful for that. And then after I came out and had those 2 incidents, then got into the program and connected with a lot of sober people. So there is so much help out there, and that is how I got help. What is your biggest challenge in sobriety? So I think I talked about how some of my really hard moments during the first 30 days question, but my biggest challenge in sobriety was myself having to face a situation that was really tough to face. It was a part of my life that had happened. It kind of started in the beginning of everything and was the main, like a really large reason how things got so dark. In particular, the word dark just really comes to mind with all of this whole situation, but how things got really dark really quick. And it wasn't just like lighthearted drinking. It was really a dark part of my life. And several years into sobriety, the thoughts of everything didn't go away. I realized that it was just something really reoccurring that would come up on runs at nighttime. It's just something I felt like I couldn't escape. And after seeing that it was happening to multiple other people, I decided to come forward with my story. And doing that period was something I never thought I would do and super challenging, but doing it sober was, I mean, the greatest gift ever, that I was able to have that courage and be able to face it head on. But at the same time, it was by far the most challenging thing I've ever done in my entire life. But I'd do it again so that nobody else has to go through that. So, did people help you or hate on you in the beginning? People, both, definitely both. For me, luckily, the word help comes to mind because so many people helped me beyond what I even thought was humanly possible, or that I even thought that people were capable of doing. I mean, I had like an army. Like, I had my aunt, uncle, my cousins, my parents, my grandma, my old coach and her husband, and it was at my friend that tried to help me get sober the first time. I was like, they're never going to talk to me again. They came back, tried to help me get sober the second time. I had friends fully supporting me that were absolutely incredible. I remember breaking the news to my first friend, and they were super supportive. My best friend sent me stuff when I was in the rehab. My other friend, I came out and I was petrified to tell her. She was so supportive. I mean, so many people helped me so much, tried to help me try to feel comfortable, the wedding I was in right in the beginning of sobriety, I was absolutely horrific. I was in the wedding and I missed her bachelorette party because the night before was the last night I ever drank. And at the wedding, they had me do a fake shot with them so that I didn't feel left out, and the fake toasts and all of that. Those are the moments that people might not even remember doing for me that I'll remember till the day I die. Those little moments are so impactful and changed the trajectory of my life, because I realized that I can do this. There are so many incredible, beautiful people out there that are willing to help and that are willing to understand and that are just good people. And that was great. There's always going to be people that are going to hate in literally anything in life. You can say, I really like stickers, and people think that's horrible. I mean, there's going to be people that hate regardless. With this, it's something really personal for people. Maybe their parent was an alcoholic and ruined their life, and they never got over it, so they think it's BS. Maybe they struggle with alcohol and they're not willing to look inwards. People always say a lot of times the things you don't like about other people are the things you don't like about yourself. So if you are hating, I would just try to look at yourself. Do I have a problem with alcohol? Did I never forgive someone that had a problem with alcohol? Because it's a really strange thing to hate on someone getting their life together and trying to live better. It's a really strange thing to hate on, because when you are on the other side, me being sober, I feel like I have a really good understanding, and I'm really happy that I'm able to have empathy for any other situation that people are trying to get better and turn their lives around with, whether it have nothing to do with alcohol. But when people are trying to better their lives, that's something I'm all here for. And people are never hating from above you. Something else people always say, people are only hating from below you or from a place of hate. And that is something that I feel sorry for them, that they're holding on to hate, because hate only weighs you down. And yeah, I like to look at the positive, and there's been so many more helpful and positive and incredible people. Even I talked about a lot of the people that helped me, even bosses at jobs, that really made me feel comfortable about it in like sales environments and environments that I didn't know if like my lifestyle would fit in. Just went above and beyond to be incredible human beings, and that was great too. So a lot of people helped. What? I can't even read my own handwriting. Okay, so what's it like being sober so young? So I'm really grateful that I became sober so young, because I feel like I was given a second chance at life pretty early on, and unfortunately some people don't get that until later. So I'm really glad that I was able to try to the wrongs I did super young, and try to correct the rest of my life for the rest of my life, which I'm hoping as well. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm about to be 26, and I feel like each year my sobriety has been allotted for something. I think this year, 25, was definitely the year of growing and starting from a place of knowledge and having a lot that I already learned, but applying it in a totally new environment and place. And I think it had to get harder before it got better. And I'm trying to, the year of 25 was building my foundation where I want it to be. So I felt like I learned a ton. I'm not going to go through every year, but the first couple years of my sobriety, I had different little missions for those. I'm naming these missions after it. During it, I have no idea what's going on. But this year was a year that I really went where I wanted to build a life. And I'm trying to put myself in environments that are going to help me do so. And I'm just really tried to lay down the foundation this year. And it was really hard. I had to rip myself away from a life I was actually really enjoying. I loved where I was at in Philadelphia. I loved my job. I loved my bosses. I loved my waitressing job on the weekends. I loved my friends. I mean, I was in a really good spot. I loved where I lived. But I knew that I wanted to push myself and go somewhere else where I've always wanted to go my entire life, New York. And I knew that if I didn't do it then, I would never do it, because I was loving so much. So I had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and come here. And yeah, it was super, super challenging, and it got harder and worse before it got better. But I felt like it was a lot of building, a lot of learning, I kind of had to pull myself away from being, I like sometimes being solo for a lot of introspective work. And that's what I feel like I put a lot of that in this year. And hopefully 26 for me is the year of going after it and going after things and taking that foundation I built and then applying it and just going for every single thing I want. And then I'm glad that I'm doing it sober, and I'm glad I'm young, tying it back. Went on a tangent there. But I'm glad that I'm able to do it so young, so that hopefully the person I marry, I was already sober. For my children, future children, hopefully, I'm already sober. I'm really glad that I got sober so young, so I'm gifted so many opportunities to grow early on. But it doesn't matter what age you do it at, it's still amazing. But I'm just glad for myself, because I felt like I had to learn a lot of a lot of lessons in my life really young that I could only do young. Like, I think as you get older, no matter what, you start caring less what people think about you and this and that, maybe in your 30s and all that. I'm glad that I faced that young because I had to, because it was a problem in my life. So I'm glad that I did that, as well as a lot of other things that I've done in sobriety. I'm really fortunate for the fact that I was able to do that young, and only with the help of others. I wouldn't have, I know for a fact that I wouldn't have gotten sober so young if not for amazing people in my life. And last but not least, what advice would you give your younger self? So I think I would tell myself that your life is going to look nothing like the way you envisioned it. And that is totally okay and great and beautiful, because I am really grateful for the life I have today. And I wouldn't go back and change anything per se, but I wish I knew younger that it was okay to be myself, to lean into who I am, to lean into my own interests, and not constantly be trying to be someone that other people like and create a persona that other people like, or care about validation more than you care about self-respect, or care about validation more than you care about yourself. And to try to work through those uncomfortable feelings of having conversations at parties young, and not caring what people think about comments about your body or your weight or anything like that. And then also to not take the sports as seriously. Obviously, I think it's great to take sports super seriously, but not have that seep into your self-worth. I think sports are fun to take seriously, but not have that seep into your self-worth, because that was something that I was always trying really hard at, and I never became the number one, and that's totally okay. But I feel like that took a hit to my self-worth, that I wasn't that great because of it. So I would just tell myself really not to let external, I think wrapped up into a nice little bow, a summary of everything I just said, is I would tell my younger self to not let external opinions or external problems determine your self-worth and what's inside of you. And we just got real. Thank you, everyone. If you tuned in and listened to the first ever question episode of Get Real. I'm Maddie Brady, and I got real. Thanks for tuning in and getting real with us. Podcasts will be posted every other Wednesday on Spotify and YouTube. Please reach out via DM if you want to chat.